Well, hello there, and this is Kevin Olenek for the Bottom Line View. It is NFL playoff time. It is playoffs, playoffs. It's the time that we lift all them weights. It's time we play 16 long games in the NFL regular season to get to this point. 12 teams have a chance to play the 11 final games to get to Super Bowl 51 in Houston, Texas. It's going to be a very exciting time. I am doing my NFL picks, and we got a very interesting, a lot of interesting storylines here. If you look at the AFC, there seems to be only one team that is the surefire favorite, and everyone else is playing catch up with that team. We'll get into that. And then in the NFC, the number one team has a lot of interesting questions, and it seems like some of the wildcard teams seem to be some people's favorites as we go on towards this. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to begin where it all ends. Actually, for ours, we're going to start with the Oakland Raiders play the first game on Saturday. They will face the Houston Texans. The Oakland Raiders have been a long time disappearing from the playoffs. This year has been a great year. It was the emergence to many people's MVP, Derek Carr, and his great year, which unfortunately ended last week on Christmas Eve. Broke his leg. He's out for the rest of the year. Then, of course, you're assuming that you have your number two quarterback, which is Matt McGloin, not Derek Carr, but hey, not a rookie quarterback, so they should be okay, right? Well, unfortunately, Matt McGloin gets hurt, and they are going in with Connor Cook into Houston, facing the Houston Texans, which have their own quarterback issues. They started this year with spending a ton of money on Brock Osweiler, the heir apparent apparently to Peyton Manning. John Elway decided not to take Brock Osweiler. He decided to go a different route. And Brock Osweiler was the biggest free agent bust in the NFL this year. I don't think that there's any question about that. So much so that they decided to bench him with 2 games left in the season and to go with Tom Savage. However, Tom Savage is diagnosed with a concussion. So you got to go back to Brock Osweiler. And there are many reports that I was reading online about this that the Houston Texans were not happy with Brock Osweiler. They were pretty much close to a revolt if they didn't make a quarterback change a couple of weeks ago. But now you have no choice but go back to Brock Osweiler. What the Houston Texans do have, however, that is going to be a strength for them is they have the number one defense. This is in spite of losing J.J. Watt, the best player in the NFL, especially on the defensive side. They still have the number one defense. So they have that going for them, and they have the home field advantage, despite being 9-7, and the Raiders being 12-4. Now, I think that many people thought that their Oakland Raiders season was done once Derek Carr was done. And then they were absolutely certain that once Matt McGloin went down, you're going with a rookie to go forward, so you don't have a chance. But you know what? I'm actually picking the Raiders here. And it simply comes down to the fact that I think that they have enough weapons. This is not going to be this might be one of the worst playoff games of all time. Seriously. Very, very terrible. Expected to be a very terrible game. The Raiders did beat them in Mexico City on Monday night, to go back to what happened during the regular season. Questionable call, sure. But I just look at the Oakland Raiders, and I see that they have enough weapons to win this game. I think that they are going to be able to run the ball. I feel like Houston's going to have a running back by committee. Lamar Miller is expected to be healthy, but Latavius Murray has been strong all year. And you need a couple of key catches from Amari Cooper. And that the Oakland's defense is not out of this yet. They're not a terrible defense. Jack Del Rio is an excellent coach. I think that the Oakland Raiders are going to do enough to defeat Houston and win the first game on Saturday. So they're the first ones that will win. The Oakland Raiders defeat Houston. So they will go on to the next round. Now, we're going to just do the AFC first, and then we're going to follow up with the NFC after that. So the other AFC game, which is on Sunday, the early game, it is the Miami Dolphins versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, one of the big questions going into this game is the quarterback situation in Miami. Do you go with Matt Moore, or is Ryan Tannehill going to be ready for this? Now, Ryan Tannehill is not in a lot of people's top echelon of quarterbacks, and certainly, even if you have Ryan Tannehill, he's not Big Ben, who has won 2 Super Bowls, and the Pittsburgh offense is incredible with the killer bees, Ben, Le'Veon Bell, and Antonio Brown. However, let's not forget Jay Ajayi, who has actually had more rushing yards than Le'Veon Bell this year. Although Bell was hurt, it's it's a close one there. And Pittsburgh's defense does struggle to defend, and Miami has probably the stronger defense. However, this one is going to be a close game, and there's 2 advantages that I feel Miami does not have and Pittsburgh does have. One is in the coaching advantage. Adam Gates, rookie head coach for the Miami Dolphins, first playoff game, I think is a little bit of a disadvantage to a guy that has won the Super Bowl and knows how to win big games. They won a huge game a couple weeks ago, Christmas, over Baltimore. They came back from 10 down. Let's not forget that, and that's Mike Tomlin. It's not pretty, but he seems to find a way to win. Ben seems to find a way to win. They don't do it the old Steeler way, the old steel curtain way. They do it this way, and like it or not, I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers will advance and defeat the Miami Dolphins. So that continues us for the AFC. The 2 wildcard team matchups here. That will lead the Oakland Raiders heading into New England to face the New England Patriots. The Pittsburgh Steelers will be heading to Kansas City to face the Kansas City Chiefs. So let's first talk about the Oakland-New England matchup. That will be next Sunday in New England. The New England Patriots just simply win. They are 14-2 this year. Tom Brady arguably is the MVP in spite of missing 4 games due to the ridiculous Deflategate suspension, which we don't need to get into. You won games with Jimmy Garoppolo and a guy named Jimmy Bassett. Does anyone remember him? I didn't even pronounce his name right. That's how, but they just simply do it. They are the class of the NFL in terms of winning, and that's just the reality, the Brady-Belichick area. So the Oakland Raiders could merge with the Houston Texans, and they could come in and face the New England Patriots, and they would still be defeated. It's unfortunately, this is one of those things where it's the New England Patriots will win and probably cover whatever spread. And this isn't to dog the New Oakland Raiders, because I think that this is actually a good opportunity for them to learn playoff experience. If they can keep it within a 10-point range, I think that you can come away and say, Oakland's going to be a dangerous team next year. And is this game different with Derek Carr? No, I do think New England still wins because I think that this comes down to playoff experience. You have Derek Carr next year. If you're in this matchup, I certainly feel that Oakland next year will give New England a tougher run than they will this year. But this is if you're an Oakland Raider fan, I just simply feel that you look at this and you look at this as a growing opportunity. This is a great year for Oakland going forward. They got a big win this year, beating Denver at home on Sunday Night Football. They lost their last playoff game, but that game was really because of Gary Kubiak's retirement and more of an emotional advantage to Denver. So New England simply wins here. Now that leads us to Pittsburgh versus Kansas City. And there are many people out there that feel that the Pittsburgh Steelers are the biggest threat to the New England Patriots in the AFC, and maybe to the overall Super Bowl. I think that there's a couple of things that people are forgetting about the Kansas City Chiefs, and one of them is they have a very hot tight end in Travis Kelce, 6 straight games over 100 yards or more. They find ways to get touchdowns whatever way possible. One of their big wins this year is they walked into Atlanta and Eric Berry picked off the 2-point conversion and went to the end zone. They just simply find ways to win. And Andy Reid may not be Mike Tomlin, but he has been successful, though he hasn't won a Super Bowl. But if this game was in Pittsburgh, then I think that you could validly say that the Pittsburgh Steelers will win. But this game's in Kansas City, which is probably one of the best home field advantages in the NFL. Certainly the loudest crowd in the AFC goes to Kansas City, constantly competing with Seattle for that range. And Kansas City is a physical football team. They're a strong defense, and they're a well-rounded offense that I think that they can keep Ben off the field and Pittsburgh off the field and keep this to a low-scoring game. And Kansas City, I think, will find a way to win, and I think that they'll beat Pittsburgh in a very close game, which leads us to Kansas City versus New England in the AFC. So to go to the AFC final, we have the Kansas City Chiefs going up facing Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. Now, this is where I do want to bring a couple of things up here. One of the New England's 2 losses this year was on Sunday Night Football. Probably top 2 at least best Sunday Night Football games this year was the New England Patriots losing to the Seattle Seahawks. That's where the Patriots lost Gronk for the year. And I bring that game up because Seattle was physical with them, specifically with the secondary, specifically with Cam Chancellor. And they had that was probably, I would have to say, and we'll get into Seattle here in a moment, Seattle's best game. That was probably their signature win of the year. No question about it for the Seattle Seahawks. And I think Kansas City brings a lot of those elements to the game. They have a great linebacker in Justin Houston, Don Terry Poe. They have a great defense that I think will give Tom Brady fits. But New England has a really strong defense. They're well coached, and I think that this is one of those things where Kansas City is going to be in this game until the end, but I feel that New England is just too strong this year, and Tom Brady is on an absolute mission. Let's go back to Deflategate here for a moment here, because I think that this, in my opinion, is what is the most ridiculous sagas in NFL history. There have been so many other issues that should have taken Roger Goodell's time more than this. And I think Brady is on a mission to go back to the Super Bowl. And New England, if this is a home field advantage, they've lost once over this time at home field. So my pick for this to represent the AFC will be the New England Patriots. But I think that Kansas City is going to give them a good run. And I think for teams like Kansas City and Oakland, I think going forward, this will be good learning experiences for them going into New England, because I don't think that neither of these teams are going anywhere next year. But this is the year of Brady and the AFC representing by the New England Patriots. So the New England Patriots will represent the AFC, which leads us to the fascinating NFC. So many storylines in the NFC, which is great. We have the number one seed with the rookie quarterback of Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott. We have the somewhat maybe surprising Atlanta Falcons sitting in the number 2 seed. We have the hottest team in the NFC being the Green Bay Packers, telling us all to relax, says Aaron Rodgers, in declaring that they're running the table. We have the fourth quarter enigmas named the Detroit Lions and Matthew Stafford. We have Eli back, the New York Giants, who has won 2 straight Super Bowls through the wild card, and by the way, through Green Bay, actually, both times, the last 2 times. And then you have the enigma, in my opinion, the Seattle Seahawks. And that's where we're going to start. So we're going to start with Detroit facing Seattle. I think the turnaround for this year, the Seattle Seahawks had that huge signature win on Sunday Night Football when they defeated the New England Patriots. I think everyone was thinking that this is the team that's going to threaten the Dallas Cowboys for sure. And we were on our way to Seattle versus Dallas. A couple of things happened on the way, and I think that you go back to December 24th, week number 16, and I think they had a rough loss, one of the roughest losses in the year, to go back to when they lost to Green Bay 38-10. That was a tough loss. We haven't lost by 10 points in a long time. And they lost to an upstart Tampa Bay team 14-5. But this was the Arizona Cardinals on December 24th, and this was a game they should have had. This an Arizona team as their rival. There was no need to start off a game with 1 yard offensively in the first quarter. And that was also the game that they lost Tyler Lockett. Now, you go back to the Carolina game, and yes, the loss of Earl Thomas was a significant injury, and I think was a lot to question. But Tyler Lockett brought such a different dynamic to this offense that you can get that big play from if your running game, which the Seahawks running game has been a terrible all year. But that loss of Tyler Lockett and that loss of that game, they had the number 2 seed in the bag. All they needed to do was win out against 3 of the worst teams in the National Football League, the Rams, the Cardinals, and the 49ers. You even go to San Francisco, and you go to that game, and they started off, they were down 14-3. So there is a sense here that Seattle isn't taking opponents seriously. There seems to be a question of dysfunction when you go back to that Darrell Bevel, Richard Sherman fiasco during the St. Louis game on Thursday night when they wore those blood-awful uniforms. But Detroit is on a 3-game losing streak. Matthew Stafford is hurt. Detroit can keep themselves in this game. They have a bit of a better running attack than Seattle, and their defense can do some things. However, I think that because even if you look at the weather, it's expected to snow on Saturday in Seattle. I think Seattle is going to do enough to pull this game out. I think they should be okay for this one, so I will suspect that Seattle will have the home field advantage, will be okay. They've only lost once at home. It was a disastrous loss in many ways. But they will be able to pull out this game with Detroit. Now, if you're going to ask me about Devin Hester, the signing that Seattle brought in for the playoffs, I'm not looking at him being a huge factor in this. I think it's a great veteran presence, but I don't look at him as the guy that's going to turn this season around. I just think Seattle's defense has enough weapons to pull this one out versus Detroit. Which is just not a confident team at this point. You even look back against Green Bay. They hung in there, but not enough, unfortunately, at this point. Now, which leads us to the best matchup of the first round, which is Eli Manning and the New York Giants facing Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. And Aaron Rodgers declared when the Packers were 4-6 that they were going to run the table. They would have to run the table to go to the Super Bowl. And they pretty much did for the regular season. And kudos to him. Aaron Rodgers got himself, I believe, into the MVP conversation, certainly with Brady, Ezekiel Elliott, Matt Ryan. Aaron Rodgers has got to be up there. They found a running game with a guy by the name of Ty Montgomery, who has been outstanding as a running back. And you almost feel like they brought him in as to set him up as a weapon for the second half. They have an excellent coach in Mike McCarthy. But the Green Bay secondary is going through a lot of injuries, and this is a matchup that I think doesn't necessarily favor them as much. Eli just knows how to win. The New York Giants have the third best record in the NFC, behind Dallas and Atlanta. They're one of the top teams. They beat Dallas twice. And Eli has won 2 Super Bowls from going on the road. So they simply know how to do this. And they may not have a running game, but I do think that they've got the receivers to certainly threaten Green Bay with that depleted secondary and that wishy-washy defense. You know what? I know that everyone is kind of picking the sexy pick with the Green Bay Packers. I'm picking the New York Giants to defeat them. I think the Giants are going to go into Green Bay, and I think that they are going to win. They're going to defeat the Green Bay Packers in the best matchup, and I think that's going to be a great game. So that will lead us to the NFC Divisional round, which will feature the New York Giants versus the Dallas Cowboys. The third matchup in this season. The Giants have won the previous 2, which leads us to Dallas for number 3. Now, I think kudos to Dallas here, running the year 14-2. They had Tony Romo injured. They came in with Dak Prescott, and they started off a year in New York, and they lost game 1. And it was same old Dallas, same old Dallas. Then they won, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again, until they won 13 in a row, until they faced the New York Giants, and they lost a tough game to the Giants on Sunday Night Football. But still 14-2. Pick your poison with Dallas. You've got Dak Prescott or Ezekiel Elliott with the nominees for either Rookie of the Year or MVP. Everyone has talked about it. There's never been a rookie quarterback that's led the team to a Super Bowl. So there's a lot of questions. The Giants have beaten the Dallas Cowboys twice. So it's probably not a team that Dallas wants to face. However, it's tough in this league to win 3 times in a row. And I just look at a guy like Ezekiel Elliott, and I know he's a rookie, but this team has some season. They have a great offensive line. I think that they're the old school Dallas Cowboys where they control the clock, they run the football, and they make that big play to Dez Bryant, i.e. Michael Irvin. And I do think that Dallas can beat the Giants for the third time. I don't see the sweep. I think Dallas has enough on defense. The Giants don't have the running game to be patient. Yes, you can go 63 passes with Eli Manning, but I just don't think that they're going to have enough time. I think Dallas is going to do enough to hold home field and for the NFC final. Who are they going to face? Are they going to face the Seattle Seahawks, the 2-time Super Bowl finalists, or the team that is led by the defensive coordinator that led the Seahawks to the 2-time Super Bowl finalist, Dan Quinn, who is, in my mind, an underrated candidate for Coach of the Year. Certainly has brought back some swagger to the Atlanta Falcons. Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, the Falcons are number 1 in offense. Credit to Kyle Shanahan and the offense there. Defense is not as great for Atlanta as the offense for sure, but Dan Quinn seems to have brought brought a little bit of a swagger to Seattle, or sorry, to Atlanta. Go back to that game earlier in the year. Atlanta almost beat Seattle. There was a controversial pass interference call that some felt was missed, and otherwise Atlanta may have won. Julio Jones is one of the best wide receivers in the league. I just can't see Seattle right now with the way that they're operating, walking into Atlanta and winning that game. I feel like Matt Ryan's on a mission. I feel that they've got that swagger that the Seattle Seahawks used to have. And I think that they're going to go in there. They're going to close out the Georgia Dome with the last game, and they're going to go to the NFC final to face the Dallas Cowboys. So it will be Atlanta versus Dallas in the NFC Championship game. Now, if you remember, Matt Ryan has been here before. He played the San Francisco 49ers back in the 2011 Super Bowl, I believe. They played a Super Bowl versus the San Francisco 49ers. They did lose, so there is some playoff experience. The Dallas Cowboys do not have, from their quarterback perspective anyway, that Super Bowl experience, and they haven't been to the Super Bowl since 1995, before some of you people were born. But you look at this Dallas Cowboy team versus Atlanta, they have the home field advantage of Dallas. They haven't been in a Super Bowl championship in a long time. There's going to be a resurrection of Cowboy fans coming out of the woodwork. The ghost of Dallas will be there. Jerry Jones built this team for this. Jerry Jones built AT&T Stadium for this moment. The Dallas Cowboys will be representing the NFC and to go to the Super Bowl. But if you look at this from Atlanta's perspective, not unlike I talked about with Oakland and Kansas City, this is going to be a good learning experience because the Atlanta Falcons are not going to go anywhere. Certainly, this is a team that's gotten a little bit of swagger. You've got teams on the downside in the NFC South. Is Sean Payton going to be back with New Orleans? So some are speculating either he's going to be with LA or Indianapolis. That's another rumor out there that's been out. What's the future of Drew Brees? So the Atlanta is certainly in a position to be around for a long time. So this was one of those things where I think in the AFC and the NFC is the loser is going to have a long-term benefit for them. But I think that this year, for the third straight year, number one seed, New England of the AFC, will face number one seed, Dallas in the NFC. And this is in Houston, where I think that the Cowboys will have the huge home field advantage. No question about it. Everyone will be, the Cowboys will be the team that's going to get cheered. It's the America's team versus America's villain. I'm already dubbing this with the hoodie, the good guys versus the bad guys. But Tom Brady is simply on a mission this year. He is, and you forget the weapons that they have gained and they have lost. You look at a guy like LeGarrette Blount who's going to compete with Ezekiel Elliott, and they'll run the ball. The Patriots just have too many different ways to defeat you. They can beat you with the run. They can beat you with the pass. They can beat you with a 4-3, 3-4. They just have, they're just too complex. And I think that Dallas, unfortunately, they had a great run this year, but they are facing the juggernaut, the best organization right now in the National Football League, and that is the New England Patriots. And my belief is, and Mitch, I feel, is at this end is going to applaud, but the New England Patriots will be the Super Bowl 51 champions going into next year. So thank you very much for listening to this one. If you want to follow me, I don't talk always about sports in my own podcast, but I have my own podcast called Agree or Disagree, the podcast. Also follow me on Twitter at KEVOLE. Add me as a friend on Facebook. But thank you very much for listening, and we will talk to you all really soon.